Have you ever stepped out of the shower feeling fresh and clean, only to later notice a nagging discomfort in a spot you barely thought about? As we age, our bodies change in unexpected ways, and the hygiene routines we've followed for decades may no longer be enough. The truth is, some of the most sensitive parts of our bodies, often overlooked, demand special care to prevent issues that can silently affect our health, energy, and overall well-being. This is a story about a man who learned this lesson the hard way, but in doing so, unlocked a new sense of freedom and vitality in his later years. Our protagonist is George, a man of 74 who had always prided himself on his self-reliance. A retired carpenter, he was used to building things to last, from sturdy bookshelves to a beautiful deck on the back of his house. Yet, as the years passed, he began to feel as though his own body was becoming a project he couldn't quite finish. Small aches and pains seemed to multiply, and he dismissed them as simply a part of getting older. He believed a quick shower was all he needed to stay clean, a habit he had maintained since he was a young man. But George's body had changed in ways he hadn't yet acknowledged. The skin was thinner, more delicate, and less resilient than it once was. Circulation was not as robust, and the immune system was a little slower to respond. These subtle shifts were creating new vulnerabilities, especially in hidden, warm areas of his body. He was about to learn that true well-being in his golden years wouldn't be found in stubborn resistance to change, but in a quiet, deliberate adaptation to the new needs of his body. What George was experiencing wasn't a punishment, but a call to attention, a subtle message from his body asking for a different kind of care. This is his journey, a journey not of grand adventures, but of small, daily acts that restored his comfort, his confidence, and his quiet dignity. By understanding and embracing these changes, he transformed his approach to hygiene from a simple chore into a powerful act of self-respect. George's day began with his feet. For decades, they had been the sturdy foundation of his life, carrying him through long days on construction sites, across hiking trails, and around his beloved garden. Now, they had begun to protest. A persistent, dry itch had settled between his toes, accompanied by a faint, flaky redness that he initially ignored. He assumed it was just dry skin, a normal nuisance of old age, and a quick swipe with a towel after his morning shower was all he thought they needed. But the symptoms quietly escalated. The dryness turned into a subtle peeling and an unsettlingly pungent, musty odor began to emanate from his feet, no matter how much he washed them. At first, he dismissed it, thinking it was just a sign of a humid day or a pair of old socks. Then, a small crack appeared on his heel, a tiny fissure that felt surprisingly deep and painful, making every step a conscious effort. He found himself avoiding his morning walks and opting for slippers instead of his garden shoes, which had become too uncomfortable to wear. His feet, once the symbols of his independence, were slowly becoming a source of quiet anxiety. He found himself trying to hide them, tucking them under a blanket, when his grandchildren visited, and avoiding the simple pleasure of walking barefoot on the grass. The discomfort became a constant, nagging presence, chipping away at his energy and his mood. It was a symptom of a much larger problem. His lifelong habit of surface-level hygiene was no longer sufficient for his aging body. He remembered a conversation with his doctor, who had mentioned how the feet can be the first to show signs of deeper issues, like poor circulation or diabetes. This wasn't a vanity issue, it was a health issue. The cracked skin on his heel was an open invitation for bacteria. He realized his feet weren't just a part of his body he used to get around. They were a vital part of his health that required active protection. His dismissive approach to a minor inconvenience was now threatening his mobility, his independence, and his comfort. The time had come for George to rebuild his foundation, one careful step at a time. George decided he had to take action. He scheduled a visit with a podiatrist, a specialist he had always considered unnecessary. The doctor, a kind woman with gentle hands, explained what was happening. His feet were a warm, moist environment, and without thorough drying, they had become a breeding ground for a stubborn fungal infection. The skin was thin and dehydrated, making it prone to the painful cracks he was experiencing. It wasn't a sign of weakness, she told him, but a signal that his hygiene routine needed an update to meet the needs of his aging skin. Armed with new knowledge, George began a new daily ritual. After his shower, He no longer just dabbed his feet dry. He sat on a small stool, took a soft, clean towel, and meticulously dried every inch of his feet. He paid special attention to the spaces between his toes, using the corner of the towel to ensure no moisture remained. It was a simple act, but it required patience and a level of attention he had never given this part of his body before. He realized the quick and easy habits of his youth were now a form of neglect. Next, he applied a fragrance-free moisturizing cream to the tops and soles of his feet. He was careful to avoid the areas between his toes, as he learned this could trap moisture. The sensation of the lotion soaking into his dry skin was a small comfort, a quiet moment of care he was giving himself. He saw his feet not as a problem to be fixed, but as a part of him to be tended. This simple act of moisturizing prevented further cracking and helped the existing fissures heal. Within a few weeks, George noticed a profound difference. The itching was gone, the odor had vanished, and the painful cracks on his heels had begun to close. He was able to put on his garden shoes again and work in his yard without a second thought. The fear of discomfort was replaced by a quiet confidence. He learned that caring for his feet wasn't a chore, but a small investment in his freedom. By adapting his routine to the reality of his age, he had reclaimed his ability to walk, stand, and move with ease. Just as George began to feel a newfound sense of well-being, he noticed another set of subtle symptoms. He began to feel a persistent, uncomfortable itching in his groin area. It was an awkward, private discomfort he felt too embarrassed to talk about. He assumed it was just from sweating or his clothes, but the irritation persisted. A faint odor, similar to what he had experienced with his feet, started to concern him. He found himself constantly adjusting his clothes and feeling self-conscious, even when he was alone. The discomfort affected every aspect of his life. Sitting for long periods became a quiet torture, and he found it difficult to get a good night's sleep. He was an active man, but the thought of his morning walk or a round of golf now filled him with dread, as the exercise seemed to worsen the irritation. This wasn't just a physical issue, it was an emotional one. The feeling of being unclean and the need to hide his discomfort chipped away at his confidence and dignity. His daughter, Maria, noticed his mood had changed. She found him sitting in his chair more often, and he seemed less interested in his usual activities. When she gently asked him if he was feeling well, he brushed her off. But a few days later, after a particularly uncomfortable night, he found the courage to mention his symptoms to her. To his surprise, she listened without judgment and explained that these issues were common and nothing to be ashamed of. She reminded him of the importance of addressing them before they became more serious. With his daughter's support, George made a decision. He knew he couldn't continue to let this quiet discomfort control his life. He had to face his embarrassment and understand the root cause of the problem. He realized that the same principle he learned with his feet applied here. His body was sending him a signal that his current hygiene routine was no longer adequate. The warm, moist environment of the groin, combined with thinner skin and less elasticity, was a prime breeding ground for the same kind of issues he had faced before. The path to relief, he knew, was not to ignore the problem, but to confront it with knowledge and intention. George's journey to reclaim his comfort in the groin area was about more than just washing. It was about learning to manage moisture and friction. He started by using a mild, unscented soap. He learned that harsh, fragrant soaps could strip the skin of its natural oils, worsening the irritation. He took his time, gently cleaning all the skin folds and creases, realizing that a rushed rinse was the primary reason for his problems. The most critical step, he discovered, was drying. He learned that leaving any moisture behind was the main culprit. After washing, he used a clean, soft towel to gently pat the entire area completely dry. He was meticulous, ensuring every fold was attended to. He also learned to use a hairdryer on a cool, low setting for those hard-to-reach areas, a simple trick that made a world of difference. The feeling of being completely dry was a relief he had underestimated for so long. He also made a change to his wardrobe. He swapped his old, tight-fitting underwear for loose, breathable cotton briefs. He learned that synthetic fabrics trapped heat and moisture, while natural fibers allowed the skin to breathe. He also started changing his underwear twice a day if he was feeling particularly sweaty or active. These small adjustments felt a bit fussy at first, but the results were undeniable. The itching and the odor began to fade, replaced by a feeling of freshness and comfort. George's newfound routine wasn't about vanity, it was about dignity. The ability to move freely without discomfort and the relief from a persistent, nagging worry restored his confidence. He could now enjoy his morning walks and his time in the garden without a second thought. He learned that taking care of his body was not just about what was visible, but also about what was hidden. By embracing a more intentional approach to hygiene, he had restored not just his comfort, but his sense of self-respect. Just when George thought he had mastered the art of adaptive hygiene, he was faced with one more surprising challenge: his navel. It was an area of his body he had never given a second thought to, assuming it took care of itself during a shower. But over time, a faint, musty smell began to emanate from it, an odor so subtle at first that he questioned if he was imagining it. He also noticed a sticky, almost damp feeling inside the small indentation, accompanied by a slight redness around the rim. He was mystified. How could such a small, seemingly insignificant part of his body cause so much trouble? He tried to scrub it with a washcloth, but the feeling of discomfort and the persistent odor remained. The symptoms were a quiet but unsettling presence, and he found himself trying to hide it, even from himself. He was beginning to understand that his body was an ecosystem, and leaving any part of it neglected could throw the whole system out of balance. A memory came to him from his childhood, of his mother reminding him to clean behind his ears and under his fingernails. He realized his navel was a similar pocket, a recessed area that could easily trap lint from his clothes, dead skin cells, and sweat. This collection of debris, he now knew, was a perfect breeding ground for bacteria and yeast, especially in a warm and moist environment. He had been neglecting this tiny, hidden crevice for his entire life, and it was now, in his older years, making its presence known. This symptom was the most surprising of all. It was a testament to how our bodies change with age and how old habits must be reevaluated. His body, once a self-cleaning machine, now required more intentional care. He understood now that ignoring even the smallest part of his body could have a ripple effect on his overall health and comfort. He decided to tackle this final frontier of hygiene, knowing that the same principles of care and attention that worked for his feet and groin would apply here as well. George's approach to his navel was the most meticulous of all. He learned from his previous experiences that the key was gentle cleaning and thorough drying. During his daily shower, he would take a cotton swab dipped in warm, soapy water. He gently inserted it into the navel, carefully rotating it to dislodge any lint or debris that had accumulated. He was amazed at how much was hiding in such a small space, and the act of cleaning it felt like a quiet victory. After cleaning, he would rinse the area with a clean, damp cloth to ensure no soap residue was left behind, as he knew this could cause irritation. Then came the most crucial step: drying. He learned that a damp navel was an open invitation for microbial growth. He used a fresh, dry cotton swab or a tissue to meticulously dry the entire area, ensuring every last bit of moisture was removed. Sometimes, he would even use his hairdryer on a cool, low setting for a few seconds to ensure it was completely dry. The results were almost immediate. The musty odor vanished, the redness faded, and the sticky feeling was gone. This simple, 30-second routine, performed daily, made a world of difference. He realized that the act of caring for his navel was not just about preventing infection, but about a deeper sense of self-care and attention to detail. It was a small act, but it yielded a powerful sense of freshness and well-being. George had now transformed his hygiene from a rushed, autopilot activity into a deliberate ritual. He had learned that a body over 70 required a different kind of attention. He no longer believed that the small aches and discomforts were an inevitable part of aging. He saw them as signals, a language his body was speaking to him, asking for a change in his habits. And by listening, he was rewarded with a level of comfort and confidence he thought he had lost forever. George's life began to change in subtle but profound ways. The nagging discomfort in his feet was a distant memory. He was now able to enjoy long walks and work in his garden for hours without pain. His confidence had returned, and he no longer felt the need to hide his feet or feel self-conscious about them. The simple act of checking and caring for his feet each day had given him back his mobility and his love for being active. The discomfort in his groin, a source of quiet anxiety and embarrassment, had also completely vanished. He felt clean and fresh all day, and the fear of a persistent odor or irritation was gone. This restored his dignity and allowed him to feel more at ease in social situations. He realized that a simple change in clothing and a more thorough drying routine had a monumental impact on his emotional and physical comfort. He no longer felt the need to apologize for his body or worry about its needs. And finally, the most surprising lesson of all, the care of his navel. The daily act of gently cleaning this small, forgotten pocket was a powerful reminder that every part of his body, no matter how small, deserved attention. This routine became a symbol of his newfound approach to aging, a quiet, intentional commitment to his own well-being. It was a daily act of respect for the body that had carried him through so many years. George had learned the most important lesson of his life. His body wasn't failing, it was simply changing. And he, in turn, had to change with it. The rushed, generalized habits of his youth were no longer sufficient. He had to become a student of his own body, listening to its signals and adapting his routine accordingly. He was no longer a victim of his age, but a master of it. George's story is a powerful reminder that aging well isn't about grand gestures or expensive treatments. It's about small, consistent acts of care that honor your body's needs. The feet, the groin, and the navel are more than just body parts. They are early warning systems, quietly signaling how your body is coping with age. By giving them the attention they deserve, you can prevent infections, enhance your comfort, and restore your confidence. Taking a few extra minutes each day to clean and dry these three areas is a profound act of self-respect. It's an investment in your mobility, your dignity, and your overall health. It's a quiet refusal to let age diminish your commitment to feeling good. Like George, you can learn to listen to your body's signals and adapt your routine to meet its changing needs. Your body has carried you through decades of life. It deserves your attention, your respect, and your care. Start today by giving your feet, your groin, and your navel the care they deserve. This is not about vanity, it's about vitality. It's about building a stronger, more confident foundation for every single day you have left to live. You have the power to transform your health and well-being, one small, intentional act at a time. Thanks for watching. Hit the bell icon for the daily updates. Please do like, subscribe, and share with your friends.